Hi, this is the Conicity Technologies EXM100 startup guide. So what we're going to do is start by turning on the main power switch. The computer is going to boot up, which will just take about 30 seconds. Then the program will load. Once the program's loaded, you need to press and release the emergency stop button to initialize the machine. Press it, twist to release. The inside light's turned on. Now we have our main menu. We're going to start by going into the end mill program. And then we're going to start by homing the machine. Press home. Once the machine's homed, the program options are available. So we can choose the direction of the end mill, either right hand or left hand. We can choose diameter in increments of 1/8 of an inch, from 1/8 up to 1 inch. We can choose the length of cut. We can choose the edge prep size, and this is a Conicity standard. Typically we've had W1, 2, 3, and 4 for various types of tools and materials, ranging from wood and carbon fiber up to high nickel alloys and things like cast iron and everything in between. So on this machine, we've added a few extra size options in between sizes, such as W2 plus, W3 plus, W4 plus. The online document will go into what these sizes mean in a little more detail. So first thing we're going to do is just give you an overview of this screen. So the menu button will take you back to the main menu. The program name is listed there. This is the count of end mills that we've run since we last hit the reset button. So you can reset that, and this is just a job counter if you want to count how many end mills you do in a day, a week, or a job. We've reviewed the parameters. Clear will wipe out those parameters. You can't run the machine with zeros, so we're going to put something back in there. We have fault clear. That's the emergency stop button, which if you press it now, it's going to cancel anything that you're doing and show that there's a fault. It's going to turn off the inside light. So we're going to twist and release that. The light comes back on. Fault's clear. Machine's no longer homed, so we'll home it again. Notice it still says canceled. This message here is basically what happened the last time you either ran a cycle or canceled a cycle. I decided to leave this here so that if an operator starts a cycle and walks away, and say someone accidentally opens the door before the cycle's finished, when they come back, they might think that the tool's been edge prepped, but this will give you an idea that you may want to take a look at it on your measuring device or under a microscope. We have the status message here saying it's ready. So homed, green, ready. We've got a green light, means I'm ready to run. Notice there's a door status message. So door closed as you open, door closed. And the next thing we're going to do is load up a tool. So we open the door, the chuck, rotate the dial here, the knob, to open up the chuck fingers. These are the flat, pointed chuck fingers, which allow you to grip very small diameter end mills. If you need to run anything, say 1/2 inch or larger, we have flat chuck fingers, which are more appropriate. These have magnets on the back, so they click right into the slots on the jaws. So I'm going to load a tool, and then we'll run a cycle. All right, so we have a 1-inch end mill that we're gonna edge prep. It's a 4-flute right-hand cutting end mill with a 1.5 inch length of cut. And since I'm doing this one-handed, this is gonna be a little awkward looking. You wanna put the tool in there, snug it up in the jaws. You don't need to tighten it any more than so that the tool doesn't slide, okay? So there we go. It's in there. We have a ruler on here which we can use to measure the flute length in case you didn't know what it was. So going back up, well, let's close the door. Going back up to our setup screen, we obviously need to increase the diameter, and we're gonna enter the length of cut by jogging this up to 1.5, and we're gonna do, let's just do W2 for this example. And then we have a green light, ready, doors closed, the tool's loaded. We have the correct diameter and length of cut, and so we can press start. For single mode, we've just pressed start to begin. It's gonna say scanning, so the tool's moving in. It detects. Once it's detected, it displays the length that the tool's hanging out from the fingers. It's moving into the edge prep position. And now we're processing. So the tool's gonna move in and out the brush for a predetermined amount of time and speed, and applying the Conicity edge prep. Okay, so now we're retracting. It's gonna say finishing up. So when it says finishing up, you can safely open the door without canceling the cycle, and then you can remove the tool. I'm gonna do this again, but this time, instead of single mode, we're gonna do auto mode. What auto mode means is you no longer have to press the start button. Simply by closing the door, it's going to start the cycle. And this is helpful if you have a batch of tools where they all have the same parameters. So you close the door, started, scanning, process repeating. Now notice we have the red and white. That's the boundary of the laser. So when the laser detects the end of the tool, it'll pause there. It'll say detected, and now it's gonna move in. If we open the door, it cancels the cycle, and it's just gonna sit there. So what you can do now is you can, basically, if you open the door for safety reasons, it's gonna cancel the cycle. Or if you realize you ran the wrong program, you can open the door. You can also press the emergency stop button. Both will behave kind of similarly. To reset this condition, we're gonna press the home button. Notice it rotated the chuck back to where we had the knob to begin with. So it's homing. All right, we're ready again. See, it still has cancel, which is the last thing that happened. It's still in auto mode. So now we're gonna run it again. This time, as it's scanning, I'm gonna hit the emergency stop button. Cancels, got a red light, which we also had with the door open. Now, you can't do anything until you reset the stop. Then it wakes it up, you can home it. Chuck knob returns to the start position, X-axis homes, Y-axis is going to home. And it's ready. The next thing we're going to do is go back to the main menu. So we've covered the end mill program. Next we're going to cover the step drill program. So this program would be used to do the OD steps on a drill where the steps are not facing the same direction as the point, where they're on an angle. So if there's enough of an angle to allow the brush to address the OD step, then you're going to want to use the step drill program. This one has a few more options, but it has a lot of the same options. So I'm not going to go into what each of these things do. We have a separate counter for step drills, which you can reset, which won't affect the end mill counter. So the difference here is we have direction and diameter. Instead of length of cut, we have position, because with the step drill program, it's not going to run the length of the tool. The brush is going to address a specific position on the tool. And so we allow up to 3 steps. All have to be the same direction and all have to be the same size. But you can enter in up to 3 different diameters and positions, and the machine will sort them and address them in order. One thing I will point out is that the chuck is going to be limited how far it can move into the brushing area, because the size of the chuck with a large diameter end mill could exceed the diameter of that opening. So for drills 1/2 inch or smaller, we'll allow those chuck fingers, the jaws, to go deeper into the brushing area for smaller tools. But for larger tools, we'll limit that. If you try to enter in a length of cut or a position that's too long, let's just say 5 inches. Clearly we can't do 5 inches. That's only about 2.5 inches hanging out, but let's try it. It's going to try to detect. It's going to say out of range, because it calculated there's no way I can get 5 inches deep into that tool unless I detect it really quickly. So while this looks repetitive, this is the last thing that happens. So if you start a program, you walk away, you come back, you think the tool's done, you say, uh-oh, it was out of range. I see why. Very important to make sure you're pretty honest and accurate about the diameter of the tool. You don't want to put too small a diameter versus the reality. That could cause damage to the brush and to the machine. So this is a 1 inch diameter end mill. We're going to pretend it's a step drill with a position of, let's say, here we can do position 0, and here we'll do position 1 inch. Let's try it, 0.75. All right, so we got 2 steps, both at the same diameter, one at the tip and one at 0.75 inches in from the tip. And let's do auto mode. Open the door, close it. Now it's going to scan. The deepest it's going to go is 0.75. So it detected successfully. Tool's moving in to the brushing area. We're doing step 1 of 2. When step 1 is completed, it'll do step 2 of 2. Notice we have a blue light when the machine is in process. So the tool moved into the second position. It's doing step 2 of 2. Again, this distance is how far that tool's hanging out from the fingers. Okay, now we're retracting, returning the chuck knob back to the original position, homing the x-axis, homing the y-axis, which is what carries the brush. Homed, and when you see the blue distance, that means it did detect successfully, and it's probably edge prepped with a high degree of certainty. So feel good when you see that message if you walk away and come back. All right, so that pretty much does it for step drill. So now we're going to go back to the main menu, and now we're going to cover the manual mode. So just like in the drill machine, pretty much have the same manual mode buttons here. We have a couple more counters. This is the brush counter, which isn't affected by the step drill or end mill counter reset button. It has its own reset button, and that is for when you change the brush. So users report they get anywhere between, say, several thousand tools up to 12,000 or 15,000 tools, depending on their application and how aggressive they're using their machines. Whenever you change a brush, you can reset that counter. And so you can keep track of where you are in that brush's life. The total counter, the total counter is the lifetime number of cycles that this machine's run. So over here we have our sensor messages, such as the beam, door, X-min, and Y-min. So I'm going to show you what those are. When we open the door, we get door open, close the door, door closed. When we pass our hand, beam detect, beam clear. When we home the machine, I'm going to close the door so I can get closer. When we home the machine, here you're going to see it's going to touch off on the proximity switches for the x-axis, then the y-axis. So this is a good way to make sure that your proximity switches didn't shift during transport. Sometimes trucking companies treat the machines to a rough ride, and maybe a proximity switch gets slightly out of position, so we can help you if that happens to you. All the beeping that you hear, that can be turned off with sound off. And then over here, these are our motor drives. X is the carriage that moves the chuck. Y is the carriage that moves the brush. R is the chuck rotation, and B is the brush rotation. So you can turn each one on, activating left and right for X. So you can jog. You can hold it down. It bumps. It's not a smooth movement, but it's just meant to move it a little bit. If you need to access the proximity switch, it's in the back there. Would prefer you don't jog it and run it into the end of its travel. That's generally not good for the machine. Y-axis, let's take a look. So I'm going to jog it forward. That's moving the brush carriage inward and backward. Now we're going to turn on the chuck rotation. We can rotate that guy. And the brush rotation. Okay. Notice by activating these and jogging, we're no longer homed. Also, if you hit the emergency stop, that'll not home it. Through all my jogging, I did relocate the chuck knob, so when the axis is off, you can simply rotate this back into position. All right. Last thing we're going to cover is if we're on the main menu screen, here we see the machine model, the machine serial number, and software version. And the last thing we have is a shutdown button. So we're going to shut down. We hit shut down and it's going to go red. Screen's going to go off. Light's going to go off inside. Now we're waiting for the computer to turn off, which we can tell by no cable. That means the computer is safely shut down and we can turn off the power by going around the main power switch, switching it off. This concludes today's video, startup guide for the EXM100. If you have any questions, consult with the online document or give us a call. Thanks.